Sharks aren't supposed to cry, or so the saying goes. If tears fell from a shark eye, how would you ever know?
Welcome everybody to TruExact. Shark Week continues here in 2021, Ocean Week, whatever you want to call it. We are not affiliated with Discovery Channel. Have to throw that out just so I don't get a cease and desist. And if I do, any publicity is good. That's all I can say. We're here with Eric, Ellie, and joining us, our first shark expert from last year, the OG of the TruExact Show, Shark Week, Miss Catherine Macdonald. How are you doing?
How are you? It's great to be here.
Yes, it's awesome. I know it took some time for us to coordinate, but finally we got together and we are ready to ask you some questions. I have one personally because I know over the past year you actually got a grant and you were out there exploring. So tell us about how that came to be.
So one of the least fun parts of being a scientist is applying for funding to do science. So that's like one of the fundamental tasks that I think none of us like. I mean, feel free to bring someone on here who disagrees with me, but I don't know who that is. But I feel very fortunate that NATGEO funded some of our research on shark nursery areas this year. So it's been really cool and exciting to get to work with them to start ramping up some of the work we're doing, putting acoustic tags in juvenile sharks to look at how they use habitat and how that changes as they age. So basically, they start out in a smaller area and then get braver and expand outward as they're a little bit bigger and a little bit less afraid of being eaten.
Nice. So now excuse my ignorance on the subject. Yeah, we'll go with that. Yeah, that's pretty solid. A shark nursery, what exactly is it?
Yeah, so sort of in the same way that we would think of kids as at different developmental stages needing different things. So preschool is different in location and in what you're doing than high school. Sharks, when they're small babies, often have specific habitats that they rely on. For a lot of species, those are mangroves or sometimes seagrass beds, places that tend to be a little bit more shallow and are less likely to also host the big sharks that might like to make a meal out of a small shark.
So how do you get these smaller sharks? Do you go out there and catch them? Like, how do you know where the smaller ones are? So
a lot of science is, I'm not going to say the word, but effing around and finding out.
We're very PG on this show.
I don't know what youths are listening to you.
You're right. You're right. Go on.
Not many people are, so.
Same. But so some of it is just looking at the characteristics of a location and saying, well, hey, this looks like some pretty good habitat. Let's put some hooks in the water and see what happens. And for us, for nursery areas, those are mostly smaller hooks, right? We use scientific long lines with fairly small hooks that are designed to hopefully target and catch those younger, smaller-bodied sharks to get a sense of what habitat is important to them. For a lot of big sharks that make long-range migrations, like tiger sharks, like great hammerheads, if when they're young, they're really attached to a particular location, one of the best ways you can protect them is by protecting those important places. Because it's very difficult to protect, as an adult, sharks that might travel thousands of miles and cross many international boundaries.
Cool. Now, when you got the grant, sorry, Eric, when you got the grant, do you have to present all that, like in a paper? Like, this is what we want to do. This is, okay.
Yeah, no, so my students are like, oh, I want your job when I grow up. And I'm like, yeah, you see the part of my job that is grabbing sharks and teaching in a classroom, but probably 85% of it is writing papers, writing grants, analyzing data. You know, it's not that I don't love my job, but I think the parts of it that are photogenic and the parts of it that I spend the most time on,
Right. Yeah.
This time of year we're in the field, so that's nice.
Yeah. It's like, I remember when we did home ec in high school. I loved cooking, but the classes we didn't cook, I hated it. You know, it wasn't my cup of tea, as they say. So I think it's the same thing.
The
right?
same exact thing. I was gonna ask, is there like an age or a size if the shark is too young where you have to throw him back?
So every single shark that I work with is getting thrown back. They've just got about 3 minutes of alien probing before that happens, where we're taking some quick measurements and a couple little samples. But every single animal that we work with is released alive. But yes, there are size limits for a lot of fish and sharks for commercial catch of them. Permitted scientific research, sometimes the rules are a bit different, but I don't personally do lethal research, not because I don't think that it's important or worthwhile, because we've learned a lot from lethal research, but if I'm collecting samples that I need from a dead shark, I'd rather collaborate with fishers who are using those animals for other purposes and try to get the samples I need from them.
Wow. And when you get a grant, so you said it's your grant, how many people are involved in it? Like, are you just like the head person of it and then you pick your own team and do all that?
It varies a lot. So people don't necessarily realize this because it's not, I mean, I can't believe you guys are asking me about grant making. Like, who's really dying to know about the inner workings?
I am, honestly.
Obviously,
these two jabronis, for whatever reason.
I have
no shark-related questions. I have shark questions, just so you're aware.
I have to say, Eric, 2 of your best questions ever, by the way.
Thank you. And I have another one. I'm just gearing them up. Go ahead.
But what I would say is, in the media, you're like, oh, this scientist made this discovery. But science is always a team sport. So there are some grants that I'm what scientists generally call the PI on, the principal investigator, which usually means that I'm the main point person on that grant. And even if I'm not doing all the work myself, I'm like organizing the rest of the team. And then there are other grants where I'm a kind of backup player and somebody else is leading the team, and then they're saying, hey, Catherine, can you come in and look at this particular aspect of the data, or can you write this part of the paper? And I'm just helping out. So I think a good scientist is happy to play both roles at different times and for different projects. And without a really amazing team that I work with, I would be able to accomplish a very small fraction of what I do.
Yeah,
Nice.
Very humble. And then my other question was, because like I've experience in like budgeting and all that. Do you have to think about that? Like, let's say you get $100,000 grant. Do you have to be like, okay, well, this boat trip is $10,000. Like, okay, I can only do 9, or I could do it. Like, who's helping making sure you're not going over the grant?
Yeah, so there's a long list of things that scientists are expected to do that nobody teaches us how to do. And in a lot of cases, that includes things like management of your team, of any employees, any lab managers, all that kind of stuff, management of your students, sometimes teaching. My PhD program gave me opportunities to practice teaching, but didn't actually require that I take any classes on teaching, even though as a PhD, a lot of my work is teaching students. And budgeting is, I would say, a part of that. The good news, bad news for us is that in general, granting agencies are giving you a set amount, and that's the money that you have. And if you screw it up, that's a problem for you to solve. So you don't have the kind of overages that you might in a corporation where, oh crap, we screwed up and we're spending, half again as much money as we intended to. You just run out of money, and then you have to, either alter your goals in a way that lets you complete the grant with what you have done already, or be really awkward and embarrassed with your granting agency. Thankfully, this one has not happened to me.
Yeah. And are they all connected? Because like, let's say you have this great idea for a grant and unforeseen circumstances, maybe you blew over your budget, or they said, all right, you're not getting any more money. Here you go. And you're like, I can't do anything with this. So it's kind of lost. Does that kind of tarnish the scientist's reputation for other grants? Is there like a community, or can you just go to like TD Bank, shut your card down, so you go to Wells Fargo?
I would say it's probably somewhere in between. Like, they're not necessarily directly coordinating, at least as far as I know. But your reputation in general is going to affect your chances, your scientific reputation. And so if you are kind of establishing yourself as a person who talks big and doesn't deliver, that may not catch up with you immediately, but it's probably going to catch up with you at some point.
Yeah.
We'll get to Ellie. You asked the first shark question. I just quickly have to say, if I was a budget manager, 100 grand, I would blow it immediately. I would buy like a golden rod, like a golden fishing
You just
pole.
buy a bunch of food. Shut up.
Right.
You buy a bunch of food.
I'd
A golden shark chain for $100,000. I can't write much about this.
a singing
It
rubber
doesn't
fish.
float.
Like,
It doesn't float. We know that. It doesn't float. So
yeah,
For
go on.
most of them, you're submitting a budget in advance before they give you the money.
Oh.
So you'd have, I encourage you to submit a golden shark chain research budget, but there's some expectation that you're going to spend it more or less how you said you're going to spend it.
I want to see how fast I get robbed. That's my research.
All right, Ellie,
that's
go.
gonna be more of like a sociology experiment, but that's okay.
I'll do both.
Ellie, go on. Do some shark.
Okay, so I don't know, maybe if this is your realm, but why do some sharks live birth and some are, egg birth or whatever? How come some sharks do that? Is that like a evolutionary thing? Is that more advantageous for certain species of sharks to do that? Or, because some of them have to like come out and get out and go. I know some of the pups, they fight in the womb and whichever one lives is the one that gets born. It's the shark eat shark world out there, pun intended. But yeah, is there any reason why certain species do live birth and certain species don't? Or is it that's just how it is for them?
Yeah, it's a great question. So my answer is going to be annoying because I'm a scientist, so sorry. But
no, I'm a science person too, so go for it. Annoying.
I didn't even know there was two separate birthing things with sharks. So go on.
We've got at least three, right?
Okay.
We've got viviparity, right? You're giving birth to live young that are attached to mom by an umbilical cord and a placenta. You've got aplacental viviparity, which used to be called ovoviviparity, and that's where mom
that's the one.
laying eggs into her own uteri, and they're hatching there, and the pups are developing inside, but they're not directly connected to mom. And you've got fully egg-laying species where they're laying an egg out in the wild and leaving it to do what it does and hope for the best. And I think that the simplest answer here is that you can think about the process of evolution as the process of solving problems to optimize for your circumstances, right? And sharks have been around for more than 400 million years. They've had a lot of time to experiment and to arrive at all of these different solutions. And so you see this incredible diversity in sharks and in their relatives that I think has to do with having had a lot of time to get it right in a lot of different environments and in a lot of different ways. So for each of those species, what they're doing is, what evolution has determined is most successful and works best for them. But, it depends on a whole range of habitat and evolutionary lineage and all that kind of stuff. But I agree with you that shark reproduction is one of the coolest topics.
It is, yeah, like 3 different ways. And again, the one, which species is it where they, fight it out inside the womb? Is that tiger sharks? Okay. Very cool. I mean, well, not cool.
And there's some evidence that maybe a couple other species do similar.
Okay.
What one of my colleagues calls interuterine thunderdome.
Hell yeah. That's amazing. Okay, but speaking of like shark pups, have you ever caught like a pregnant female and like then do you study those or how does that work?
Yeah. So I'm going to hop back for a second just because I'm really excited about shark reproduction. Sorry. But cool point to make here is that if you're not connected to mom in the uterus, then she's got to feed you and she's got to create an environment where you can grow without that connection, right? So with that placental connection, mom's food and energy and blood is all circulating through. She's managing your toxin buildup, all that kind of stuff. But when you're not connected, you've got to solve that problem other ways. So actually, as their pups mature, dogfish exchange the fluid inside their bodies with seawater to help keep the womb oxygenated enough for the pups to breathe. Where white sharks have these really crazy walls of their uterus that allow them to sort of force oxygen from their blood into that fluid so that their pups can breathe. And all of those species, even those that are ram ventilators as adults, right? Adult sharks that would have to swim all the time to breathe. They have to be able to do something else in the womb, right? You can't have 20 pups swimming around inside you, smashing into each other. And so, like manta rays, for instance, we know in the womb are buccal pumping, right? They're using muscles to force water over their gills, even though once they're born, they start ram ventilating, and as far as I know, they never buccal pump again once they're born.
Really? Interesting. That is so cool.
I can't believe we've never touched on shark reproduction, I don't think, in any of the
You're
episodes.
welcome.
So
You're
thank you,
welcome.
Ellie. So I am gonna continue and ask a question. Now, are they go on.
Okay, so one more cool one. If you think about it, right, like you've got this fluid inside the uterus, pups are living in it.
Right.
Mom's feeding pups, sometimes with unfertilized eggs, sometimes they're eating their siblings, sometimes, you know, in some rays, their mom's producing intrauterine milk, which doesn't have a lot in common with mammalian milk, but it is like nutrient rich. But then, okay, you don't have that placental connection to get energy from mom. She's providing you with energy. How are you getting rid of wastes? And the answer for at least some species is they literally hold it till they're born. Their entire gestation, and then they just like everything out once they're born.
Imagine being behind that shark. Oh,
yup.
It's just like mass evacuation of everything.
It's a shark poop fest. Ugh.
Well, and then you start thinking about like, okay, this is like a little stingray, right? What percentage of its body weight is poop when it's born? It's got to be significant.
Yeah, we should have another week called Shark Week, and it's all about this. Sorry. But my question was, how does the mom monitor the, what would you say it was? I'm thrown off by my hilarious joke. The toxins. How does she monitor the toxins?
No idea. I mean, there's tons of cool stuff that they're doing that we don't know how. You know, I mean, we know female sharks can store sperm for a significant period of time before becoming pregnant, right? And we can tell you where they store it, right? But we can't, I can't tell you how they decide or how they make that happen or what makes them decide like, okay, now's a good time, let's get pregnant.
Now, are they connected to their newborns, or they don't care? You know how like lion cubs will like protect theirs?
Like, are they altricial?
They don't care at all. They're just...
So some, you know, if you're an egg layer, right, you're trying to find a good spot for your egg, and a lot of those eggs kind of attach to rocks or corals or whatever to try to hopefully wedge it down in a crevice or something, somewhere where it's not going to get eaten. So that's some parental care, but really the big favor a mother shark does her pups is when she's giving birth, she secretes hormones that suppress her appetite so that she's not tempted.
So
but like
eat her kids, basically.
Yeah, but that's really it. For most shark species, mom gives birth and then she's off doing her own thing. Little sharks are born knowing exactly how to shark. They head out into the world really well equipped to start doing the job from day one. You know, with a few exceptions, I've seen some pretty derpy sharks immediately after birth while they're still figuring out swimming, but they get it pretty quick.
How long can a shark give birth till, like, age-wise? Is there like a cutoff where they stop, or is it like a human cycle?
It varies a lot because sharks are really diverse, right? More than 500 species, you know, ranging in size from fits in the palm of your hand to size of a school bus. So a wide range. But up until recently, we thought that the frilled shark was actually the vertebrate animal with the longest gestation. They're 3.5 years for their pups, which is a good long time. And, you know, I would say in general, sharks can become pregnant and give birth throughout their lifespan as long as their health is good. Shark lifespan varies a lot. There's some that are just a couple of years, up to, you know, I mean, you've got some extreme outliers like the Greenland shark where it might be 500 years that they can live. But the average sharks that I work with here in South Florida are in the 40, 50 years of age kind of average, pretty clearly, with the exception of some of the smaller ones who may live shorter lifespans, 5 years, 10 years.
Now, this might be a stupid question. Can you tell how old they are? Kind of like a tree with its rings. How do you tell?
Yeah, so you have hit the nail right on the head. To age sharks historically, you would cut and stain their vertebrae, right? You'd lethal sample a shark, you'd cut the vertebrae, you'd stain it, and you'd count the rings. Because
I did not know that. I did not look that up. I swear to God, that is just a phenomenal job by me.
Amazing. Because they, during the summer months when food is typically more abundant, right? You're eating more, you're growing more. You'll deposit a growth ring around that season, and so you can count those rings to estimate age. It doesn't work perfectly for all sharks, but it is a common way of doing it. Thankfully, historic lethal sampling means that for an awful lot of species, we kind of have done that already and can say, well, 5 foot long of this species is about 7 years old, and so I don't need to do that to roughly age the animals that I catch.
Cool. All right,
you can also say something about age and maturity in males from their claspers. So the male sexual organs are a paired set of claspers on either side of the male's cloaca on the underside. And as they age, when they're juveniles, you have these like really tiny little soft flexible nubs. And as they age, they get much longer and they start to calcify and they'll get quite hard. So you can kind of judge whether a male that's approaching maturity has fully matured or not by feeling the claspers and how calcified they are.
Nice. Ellie, any more scientific questions that we haven't touched on you want to ask?
Okay, yeah. Do any sharks have swim bladders, or is that strictly just not like skates raising sharks, or do like even brays or skates have swim bladders, or none of them?
Yeah, no, swim bladders are pretty much a teleost thing, a bony fish thing. It's a very helpful adaptation, but sharks have tried to kind of come at the same problem with those big oil-rich livers that reduce how much they weigh. I mean, and they're fortunate too, cartilage is lighter than bone, so pound for pound, they tend to be a little bit lighter. The only shark I'm aware of that's able to kind of hang motionless in the water and do that negative buoyancy thing is the sand tiger, and they do it by swallowing air into the stomach rather than having a swim bladder.
So what exactly is a swim bladder? Sorry.
Great question. So what ecologists call teleost fishes, which is just a fancy way of saying bony fishes, have a gas-filled organ inside their body that's sort of just like a balloon, right? And so when they go deeper, the gas in that balloon compresses, so they add more gas to it to hold themselves neutrally buoyant so that they don't sink to the bottom or float to the surface. If you've ever seen like a fishing video or something where the fish has like inflated while it was being brought up from depth, what's happened is called barotrauma, and it's that fish was brought to the surface so rapidly that the gas that was under pressure at a deeper depth expanded inside the swim bladder and inflated the fish a little bit like a balloon.
Now, if that's like, would that be the equivalent of like a major artery on a human if it got punctured? Like, does that, like, would that kill them? Like, that's a huge effect?
No, thankfully, fish are fortunate in that if you have the right tool, which is basically just an appropriate weighted way to return them to depth, that gas will deflate again. You could potentially rupture it if you had an extreme enough event. But the average fish that's being caught in 100 or 110 feet of water is probably not going to be so severely injured, again, depending on the individual fish and how fast you're bringing it to the surface. But they can recover well from those injuries. We caught a Goliath grouper on one of our fishing rigs last week, which we obviously didn't want to or intend to do. And it was slightly inflated, but not so much that it couldn't sort of turn around and swim back down. So as soon as it got a little bit deeper, the gas in that bladder is going to be compressed by the pressure of the water.
Nice. I'm learning about swim bladders and shark reproduction, stuff we haven't learned.
It's the same idea. If any of you scuba dive, or any of our listeners scuba dive, you can't take a breath from your tank at depth and then head for the surface, because that gas is under pressure at depth, right? So it would expand on your way up and damage your lungs.
I didn't know that. I've never been scuba diving, nor will I probably ever go, but now I know.
Never fly and dive, right?
They'll teach you to
Never fly
breathe
and
out
dive.
the whole way up, so that you don't.
Yeah, that's too risky for me.
What is that?
God doesn't leave his basement, is what we're getting at here.
When you go up too fast, right? Is that what that is you're talking
Yeah,
about?
you get the bends.
Are we talking about the same thing?
Yes and no. So they're related problems, but a lung overexpansion injury from gas expanding in your lungs is different from gas bubbles in your blood expanding, which is what depends.
That's what it is. Okay. Yeah.
Is there a specific shark that you haven't studied yet, that you haven't caught, that you're really like itching to study? Like that, that is near where you're fishing and doing your work, but you just like haven't gotten one yet.
I mean, so many. I obviously want to see all the sharks, but they caught or reported a cookie cutter down in Key West a couple weeks ago. I would love to see one of those. They're never going to take my baits or my hooks. Those little round mouths are not made for what I'm fishing with, but that's one that I would really love to see someday. We get reports of tons of cool stuff that we just don't tend to catch. In more than 10 years working in South Florida, I've caught a great white one time. So, thanks to OSearch and their satellite tagging and, their public information tools, we can be like, oh yeah, there are great whites around here, but they don't really come inshore to where we mostly fish, and my gear is made to target smaller than that animals.
You got to get in touch with Paul Clerkin. He does all those cookie cutter shark and ghost shark things on alien sharks. We've had him on like 3 times. I've actually been trying to get him to name a shark after me for a year, and he really hasn't even budged. So
Not receptive.
It doesn't make sense. I even wore a sweater with my face on it one episode, so like maybe you could see like what it would represent,
Yeah,
TruExact
a serial killer.
Deep sea shark.
Thank you. Say it again.
Exactly. Serial killer.
No, Catherine, can you say that again just because
No, don't do it.
awesome?
Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it.
No, she's a TruExact deep sea shark. No,
she didn't.
It absolutely is beautiful. I do have other questions. I'll pass it to someone though if you guys have any.
Go ahead, Scott.
Yes. Oh, you want to go, Eric?
No, I said go ahead.
Okay. Okay, so I know you're in South Florida. Do sharks behave differently depending upon where they are in the world, like Atlantic versus Pacific, Southern Hemisphere versus Northern Hemisphere? I mean, obviously, like the Greenland shark and, Pacific sleeper shark are going to move slower because they're in super cold water and, all that stuff. But are behavior patterns and, like, eating patterns, like, with whales, they have, like, different ways of hunting depending upon where they are in the world. So just wondering if shark behavior was like that, too, was kind of regional or geographical based.
Yeah, West Coast sharks are real chill. Northeast sharks are just real uptight. Sorry, keep going.
Real aggressive, really aggressive.
Yeah, real aggressive,
rude,
mad. Yeah,
rude.
sorry.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about people here.
I don't know of like definitive science that would say like this population of the same species behaves differently in a different place. You'd see some, local adaptations, if that makes sense.
Sure,
Places
sure,
where
of course.
like resources are better, or
right.
But not that I know of is the short answer.
Okay.
With the longer answer kind of being that there's a lot that we know about behavior that relates to environment and life history characteristics, and so we can like identify some general trends. Deep sea species tend to be long-lived with very slow metabolisms. Cold water species tend to be on average a bit faster, more powerful than warmer water species, in part at least because they need to deal with colder waters, and they have access to sometimes higher fat diets, seals, whales,
Sure.
Dolphins. Most of the sharks that I catch are, fish eaters. So
Right.
we definitely do see regional differences in that way.
Sure. Okay, but it's not like significant. Like I'm sure you've heard about those orcas in South America that beach themselves to hunt, and they're the only pod of orcas in the world that do that. So I'm just wondering if sharks are on that level. But the the adaptations to your environment, that makes sense. Like we hunt this way because it's easier to feed on these fish over here with like the the great kelp forest we have over here in the Pacific. So
I mean,
makes a
and
lot of
there's
sense.
cool research that shows that sharks can learn from watching each other, right?
Oh wow.
So I would expect that if one shark came up with a cool hunting strategy, or, even when we think about fishermen who have like great fishing spots who say the sharks show up here to eat my food, like some part of that is learning from each other, learning from past experience, and saying like, oh, hey, this place is a good place to get a free meal. That's why you'll find them around bait tables. That's why you'll find them around popular fishing spots.
Wow.
Cool.
Now, what's the main cause for? No, actually, I have another question. Is there any evolutionary thing you guys have found the past 10 years, 20 years in sharks that like is very like mind blowing that they evolved from doing? Is there any specific thing?
I mean, sharks blow my mind like every day.
Right, but like, oh wow, in the past 20 years they actually grew this or learned this. Is there anything or no?
I mean, they don't change that fast. Sharks of today are pretty similar to sharks of a few hundred years ago, a few thousand years ago. Evolution is definitely like a long time scale thing. I think we see some sharks changing their behavior in response to changes that we're creating. So animals that might historically have specialized, right? There's pretty strong evidence that tiger shark teeth evolved in part to take them right through turtle shells.
Oh.
And we know that sea turtles were incredibly abundant in the Caribbean, sort of pre-contact with Europeans. And Europeans showed up and were like, wow, turtles are easy to catch and delicious. Let's eat all of these. And so, tiger sharks, because if you have saws for teeth,
Yeah.
sure, they're good at going through turtle shell, but they're good at going through pretty much anything.
Yeah.
Tiger sharks have been able to like pretty effectively broaden their diet to eat whatever. And, I don't know how broad their diets were beforehand. Obviously, none of us really do. But I think they're an example of, without necessarily changing in evolutionary terms, adapting to a new environment. And they eat anything. I've had them throw up vulture feathers on me before. One of my colleagues had one throw up a big stone crab claw, and a turtle beak. And there's a paper actually on the fact that they turn up around migratory pathways and eat songbirds that get too tired on their migration and fall into the ocean.
That's so poor bird.
It's not funny, but it's kind of funny. But
That poor bird.
Yeah, the paper has like the pictures of the like partially digested warbler.
I'm just gonna take a little break for a second. I'll come back up. What happened to him?
there's Reggie.
Have you ever seen, like they do in the movies, like in Jaws, have you ever seen the license plate? Or no, that's never happened.
Well, so no, I've never seen anything like that. I haven't. The main like human related object that I come across working with sharks is fishing gear. So we'll take recreational fishing hooks out of their jaws sometimes. We had one we caught this year where the hook had caught kind of on his flank, but then it had a bunch of wire leader on it. And every time he moved his tail, the wire leader had like cut into his tail, and it had sawed about a third of the way through his upper tail. So I was glad we could take that gear off for him because he's definitely better off without it.
Yeah, that sounds horrible.
But in terms of eating exciting things, I have not seen them puke up human stuff personally.
Damn
but
it! No body parts?
Where they do sometimes.
So, like, no fingers, no toes,
Definitely
no
not.
feet. Damn it. Okay.
Yeah, it's very rare that sharks eat people, Ellie. I don't know if you.
Accidents also happen.
And license plates. Not many cars around there.
You know, many cars in the ocean, but that's okay.
Well, and I don't think that license plates do like as good of an impression of food as some other human trash.
Like a human on a surfboard or something.
I mean, or
Question.
even stuff like plastic bags where marine animals will mistake them for jellyfish.
Yes. Also.
Did they eat jellyfish? Do they get stung when they eat it or no? Like, does that?
So I don't know whether, I mean, tiger sharks eat a lot of stuff, so
Yeah.
it surprised me if they hadn't tried it. But I was thinking more of sea turtles who love to eat jellyfish and have some specialized adaptations to make sure that that doesn't bother them too much.
Good for them. Sorry, go on, Ellie.
Okay, so since you're in southern Florida, does the destruction of the mangrove forest, does that mess up any of your research? Like, do those act as shark nurseries for some of the sharks you're studying, or is that part of your conservation? Whatnot, like stop destroying the mangrove forest?
Yeah.
How does that affect your research, and is that also a part of it too, like conservation of mangroves?
So the good news is that mangroves are pretty well protected in Florida, and the bad news is that that doesn't mean that bad things aren't happening to them.
Right.
So some of that is development and mangroves being cleared for, you know, resorts or for people's houses.
I need my mansion. Oh, in Key West. Yeah.
Yep. So there's a certain amount of that for certain. Actually, one of my friends and colleagues, Dr. Christine Stump, did her PhD research in Bimini in the Bahamas, but just across the Gulf Stream from us here in South Florida. And what she was looking at was mangrove clearance associated with resort development there. That site is one of the most famous nurseries for lemon sharks in the world.
Oh, no.
And what she found was that in areas where they cleared mangroves and replaced it with a seawall, adult female lemon sharks still came to the same location to give birth, even though now it was a seawall and not mangroves. And that shark pups born next to a seawall did not fare quite as well as shark pups born near healthy mangroves, even though very luckily they have some ability to adapt. You know, it's not like no survivors from seawall batch.
Right.
Just had to work a little harder to make it work.
Seems like sharks have gotten used to the idea that humans are just pieces of garbage to an extent, and they keep just trekking along. Like, yeah, we'll adjust, but can you please stop? Like, that's kind of what it seems like they're saying, you know?
I mean, they've survived all of these mass extinction events, and I think that if we give them even a little bit of opportunity, they'll survive us too. But we don't always make it easy.
Right, I agree. Catherine, you've been more. We could get to our final segment if you want. Ellie, you have anything? Eric?
I'm good.
I'm sure, of course, I'll think of a gajillion more questions once especially on shark reproduction once you're gone, but that's okay.
Catherine, I have to say I saw my Aunt Patty 2 days ago, and she actually said, "Are you guys doing shark stuff again?" And I said, "Yes, we're working. We got some people coming on." She actually specifically said, "Do you have Kat coming on again?" Swear to God that happened. And I was like, "Oh yeah, we got her coming on Monday." She goes, "I love Kat. I follow her. Your episode with her was amazing." So you do have a fan up here in New Jersey who is looking forward to this.
Thank you so much, Aunt Patty.
Yeah, yeah. Let's not give her too much credit. You know, we don't want to like blow her head up and whatnot. No, but it's
your aunt, our one listener, your aunt. That's sweet.
Yeah. The one following we have is for our guest.
Right? Yeah. Doesn't even care about any of us.
No. All right. So, Catherine, last time we did this gun to your head segment, I was the winner. There's no pressure. We actually cut it down from 5 questions to 2. So it's 2 questions each. So, you know, people have 2 questions. I've been working on this all day. I like my chances. So you know how it works. 2 questions each, little wordplay involved. You pick a winner at the end. So I will start this. Okay. Would you rather be mayor for 1 year where you live, or only listen to John Mayer for a year?
Oh.
Question.
Yeah.
Those sound terrible.
I'm gonna have a tough year as the mayor of Miami, but I'm gonna do my best.
All right.
Citizens deserve my care.
Right. Jeez,
Treat them like your sharks.
I didn't
Treat
know
them like your
people
sharks.
didn't like John Mayer. I mean, I think he's okay, but all right, to each his own.
Yeah, he's great.
Eric?
Nothing but the same music for a year.
Yeah, but I mean, he has a lot of songs. I mean,
So
It's one big exhale.
I only know, I think, 2. So I was envisioning having to listen to just those
2
2.
songs. Gotcha.
If you
Good
could
choice
change-
then. Solid
If you
choice.
could change one of these to quarterly, every quarter, what would it be? Shark Week or celebrating your birthday?
We came to play tonight, Catherine. So solid question.
Yeah, this one's hard because I actually really don't like people paying attention to me. So my birthday is not my thing.
or that.
But also there's a weird mix of like, I love Shark Week because for 1 week every year, everybody wants to talk to me about the thing I want to talk about, which is not true the rest of the year.
Yeah.
But then people also come back and are like, so Megalodon's not extinct, right? And I'm like,
You're in it, yeah. Right.
Oh, how many times do we need to go over this one?
I get that question, I would say 90% of the time when I give a public talk.
Boo.
So what would you rather do?
I'm going to have a very awkwardly secretive birthday 4 times a year.
Okay.
See,
There
if
you
I
go.
chose that, I would have made it a big birthday bash 4 times. Everyone would have known it's my birthday. But
But you're
35 and a
very
quarter.
clearly a lot more fun than I am. Wait, does that mean I
Because
have to
you're
age 4
insane.
times?
No. That's why I said I'm like Scott. I'm 35 and a quarter. I'm 35 and a half.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I could do that.
Yeah.
I'm also
'Cause then
not
you would,
35, but okay.
yeah, you would shorten your lifespan.
You're right, you're 70. But anyways.
Ellie?
Okay, so this isn't really a would you rather, but if you could ethically and soundly keep a pet shark, which one would it be?
I mean, and it's going to be, the shark's going to be happy no matter what it is. And it's,
Yes, it
The-
has all of its needs met. It's not in some tank. It's in like, one of those ocean habitats, essentially, like that they put the dolphins in captivity into, like those harbor habitats or whatever. So, it's basically like it's in its own little mini ocean, but it's all of its needs are met. It's happy. It's thriving, but it's your pet shark. Which species would you pick? Perfect world scenario. So you don't have to feel guilty about it.
oh, this is so hard.
Fine, top 2.
Okay, then I'm going to have a little juvenile nurse shark because they're super cute and they're very chilled out.
Cute.
And I feel like we could vibe. And I don't know, because part of me is like tiny Mako, and then they're like a buddy team, right? But then also I'm not sure that they would actually get along. But I mean, this is my weird fantasy, so sure, they're a buddy
It's a perfect world. So
Buddy
so they
Mako.
could be like, could be like what's his face, Black Panther and Winter Soldier. Like you could have that kind of thing going on. Batman and Robin.
Batman and
situation.
Robin. I mean,
I already said Batman and Robin. We don't need to repeat it. I got it.
Yeah, nobody saw it coming, but they're best friends now.
all right.
Yeah.
Here we go. A solid first round of questions, by the way, fellas and lady. Very, very solid first. So, would you rather have your dentist attempt to be your doctor or your doctor attempt to be your dentist?
I'm
Somewhere.
gonna go with doctor attempt to be my dentist because I fortunately have quite good teeth and I'm like very militant about flossing.
Oh.
So I feel like at least the short-term consequences would be lower.
Okay, it's fair. Eric?
Okay. For 1 year, would you either have to write a grant for that whole year or be President Ulysses S. Grant?
do I have to be him now, or can I be him
Right now, you decide right now. You're going to write a grant for a whole year, or you have to go be him back in the day.
Okay, so it's not like you have to just like be the corpse of Ulysses S. Grant, which
Oh,
is
no, that'd be
what he's
disgusting.
doing lately.
You'd essentially win the war for the Union. Like,
Well, I wonder what would be funny if she just became him now and walked around like she was him, like the president was like, what the hell?
Like in a Union soldier outfit and everything.
We
and
gave
just, like,
this lady the
skin
grant.
rotting off. Right.
Yeah, no, and just like do my normal job, but in a full Ulysses.
You're on the boat
costume.
in a suit, in a 3-piece suit with a little cigar. Yeah.
And rotting skin. Definitely like the rotting skin for sure.
Oh no.
Yeah, no
okay.
rotting skin. You're alive.
Oh, come on.
Yeah.
He said I get to be alive. I mean, I guess I'm going to go with writing a grant as part of my normal job, but also if the question is like which would I choose, writing the grant. If it's which would be more fun and more hilarious, definitely my dressing as Ulysses S. Grant.
Yes, you should do that once this releases. Have a release party when we air this and just dress up like that. Like, you'll see.
Yeah,
No, like you have to talk in that time too, though. I feel like you'd have to talk for that era as well.
I've got some friends who are decent with Photoshop, so you may have a me as Ulysses S. Grant coming your way.
And they're in your Halloween costume.
Ellie, you got another one or no?
Yes. Okay. If you could, no. Okay. Pygmy shark or pygmy hippo? Just pick one.
To eat? What am I doing with it?
No. You get to, if you just pick, what would you rather have, or which one would you like more?
I mean, I'm an extremely biased audience here. The pygmy hippos are very cute, but always shark.
Always shark.
Are there any pygmy sharks?
I mean, yes. I mean, there are sharks with pygmy in their name, and there are sharks that are very small.
Okay.
All right, Catherine. Now this is a solid round, so you have to pick your favorite question.
I'm so sorry, but it's going to Eric because Ulysses S. Grant.
Crap. Oh, that's so annoying because I thought I had that. Now, what we also like to do in the past year, since you've come on, we like to shame people. So we need you to pick your least favorite question so we can make fun of the person. It could be mine, too. You could give it to Eric, and he could have like a Razzie Award plus an Oscar. So.
No way. My other one was good.
I didn't have any questions that I disliked, but I will go with, I think the most difficult was which two sharks do I get to keep as a pet?
Okay,
like that's the hardest one to answer, but it's not a bad question.
All right, that's fair. That's Ellie's first technical L, even though she'll combat it and she won't.
I've definitely won like 4. So.
She's right to combat it.
Okay, yeah. She always talks about her wins, never her losses. See, I talk about my losses.
They're sticking together.
I know it is. Catherine, where can we catch your stuff? Once again, thanks for coming on. Plug your Instagram, your field school, anything you want.
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram and on Twitter at Dr. Catmac. There's a space between Dr. and Catmac on one of them because the other one was taken. I think it's on Twitter. But I think if you search for Dr. Catherine Macdonald, you will not have a hard time finding me. And you should also follow Field School if you want to keep up with what I'm doing, which is the marine science field training organization that I co-founded, and that's who I'm in the field with all summer long.
Nice. Thank you very much again for coming on. I will actually say friend of the show and the TruExactRadio shark expert.
Resident shark expert.
Resident shark expert. See, Ellie,
if she's a friend, then she's resident.
Ellie's smarter than us, so that's why she's on the show.
Thank you guys so much for having me back, and thanks Aunt Patty for helping convince them that they better bring me back.
All right. And also, just for the record, we don't only have shark experts on for this. We will gladly talk to you in October, November if you have anything new going on. So keep in touch.